Welcome back, midnight viewers. Oh my God, it's Star Trek Fest. It is the Star Trek Fest. How do we know? Here's the trailer.
Beyond the darkness, beyond the human evolution, is Khan, a genetically superior tyrant. Exiled to a barren planet, banished by a starship commander he is destined to destroy. Left for dead, he has survived.
I'll chase him round the moons of Nibia and round the Antares maelstrom and round perdition's flames before I give him up. There she is. There she is.
Shield's collapsing, Captain.
Can you give me major power? A few shots, sir.
Not enough against their shields.
The base is starboard.
Scotty, I need warp speed in 3 minutes or we're all dead. I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you. And I wish to go on hurting you. I shall leave you as you left me, marooned for all eternity, buried alive, buried alive. Sean! Sean!
At the end of the universe lies the beginning of vengeance. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
HP.
Yes.
Khan.
See, that would be the easy thing, would be to try to do
Khan.
the Khan approximation, which is the signature moment. I prefer to think of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
I'm not a drama critic.
Except, of course, happy birthday.
Oh my God, we're just going to spiral here. We're
Quotes.
watching Star Trek 2. Everybody, Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. Initial title, Star Trek 2, Vengeance of Khan. That was
Why'd they change it?
because they thought Return of the Jedi, originally titled Revenge of the Jedi,
Right.
would be too confusing for audiences. So Vengeance became Wrath. And then years later, David Fincher and Andrew Kevin Walker would call Anger Wrath for 7. And now that's all anyone thinks of in the 7 Deadly Sins as Wrath, when initially it was all anger.
You reminded me when I was a kid, Father Malone, it was like a raffle or something, carnival that I went to as a kid. I acquired the Star Wars poster. It was Revenge of the Jedi. It was the original Revenge of the Jedi poster, which would probably be worth a ton of money now. But I was a fucking kid. I put it up on my wall. It got all messed up. It ripped. I don't even know where it is anymore.
I remember seeing
Sad.
one for sale at a Spencer's Gifts and thinking, there are going to be so many of them. I'll get one later.
Yeah. Wonder what they're worth now. Probably a lot.
However, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, screenplay credited to story by Harv Bennett and Jack B. Sowards, screenplay credited solely to Jack B. Sowards, and directed by Nicholas Meyer. We all know Nicholas Meyer wrote this screenplay, starring
Yeah.
guess who, everybody? William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, James Doohan, Walter Koenig, George Takei, Nichelle Nichols, B.B. Besh, Merritt Buttrick, straight from Square Pegs. Paul Winfield is in this movie. Kirstie Alley is in this movie. And of course, he's here to answer the question, is that a real chest? Ricardo Montalban as
I read that too.
Khan Noonien Singh. Yes, there is a frequent rumor that's a molded plastic chest, whereas everyone else who was involved with the production of the movie says, no, that's just Ricardo Montalban, even at age 60, was a buff fucking dude.
I can believe it. He seemed like a very vital guy. It never occurred to me that they would. It's not as if his whole chest is bared. You only see a little bit of his upper torso. It's not like he's bare chested for the whole movie or anything.
Costume designer claims they redid the costume specifically to feature his chest. Now, critics are saying that the placement of his necklace is where the seam is, much like you would see in like on a drag race for like the false front with the boobies, where you cover the neckline with a necklace or something. So they're saying from the neck up he looks really old, and from the neck down he looks really young. So there's a disconnect there. And I say, yeah, he's got an old man head and a fucking still fit body. What are you talking about, dummies?
That's the thing. I can't say I know for sure. I don't believe it's the case, but who the fuck cares? It's like this dumb conspiracy theory. I don't get it.
Star Trek was released on June the 4th, 1982, with a budget of 12 million. That down, far down from the 45 million for Star Trek the Motion Picture. And they have so much more to do in this film with so much less. Nevertheless, they brought in 97
that's
million.
the story of every Star Trek movie, though. They were always slashing budgets. That was a common complaint. Even by the time they got to Star Trek 4, it was like the uniforms were reused, the models were reused, sets were reused. So that doesn't make any sense to me, because Star Trek 2 looks so much, it's so much more, I don't know, grounded. It doesn't look like they're pinching pennies to make that movie. It doesn't have the ooh and ahhing of the motion picture, but it looks fantastic. Even now, I'm watching it, I'm thinking this is a great fucking looking movie.
Oh, they were cost cutting and penny pinching every which way. Like Carol Marcus's space station Regula is just the space dock from Star Trek the Motion Picture turned upside down.
Look, I think they reuse some of the shots of the Enterprise in dry dock and all that kind of stuff. It still looks great to me. It's still, again, watching it again after all these years, I was like, this looks fantastic. You could have made this movie last year with a few exceptions.
HP, when's the first time you saw Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan? Was it in the theater by chance?
It was not in the theater. I saw it, the first time undoubtedly would have been on cable, first run on cable, which would have made it probably either late 82 or 83 more than likely.
Yeah, I did manage to see this in the theater. I've seen every Star Trek film, theatrically released Star Trek film I've seen in the theater. Now, I remember it vividly because I was taken, this is 1982, June. So what, we're 9, 10, 9. We're just 9. And we went to the Lowe's in Somerville. My cousins took me, and we were going to see Star Trek 2. That's why I went with them. And Star Trek 2 was sold out. So do you know what we went to see?
In 82, was it another movie or did you sneak in or something?
It was another movie. They bought tickets for another movie. They said, Star Trek 2 is sold out, Michael. We're going to go see this movie instead.
Jeez, I can't think of it. What did you see instead? Or what did you buy tickets for instead?
Poltergeist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Fucked me up. Fucked me up for years. Thanks, cousins. I just wanted to see Mr. Spock. Instead, I had a man ripping his own face off and demons coming out of closets.
Skeletons in the pool. Horrifying. Yeah. It still amazes me what they got away with that movie. That is one intense picture. It's no Star Trek 2, that's for sure.
Anyway, the next weekend I got to see Star Trek, but still I was scarred. Anyway, Star Trek the Motion Picture is an unqualified success. They do want a sequel, but they do not want Gene Roddenberry. So the brass at Paramount, so we're talking about Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg, instead turned to veteran TV producer Harv Bennett. HP, you have something to add?
I was just going to say it was a financial success, but critically it was not successful. And from what I've read, that's the reason why they wanted to cut Roddenberry out of it, because they wanted somebody who could actually make a good picture. They didn't want the same sort of issues to befall this picture that befell the first one.
That's definitely one of the reasons they cut out Roddenberry, but they had done away with Roddenberry before they even lensed Star Trek the Motion Picture. They had already banished him to his offices and ignored his memos.
But which I gathered something similar happened with The Next Generation. I don't think he was very involved in that after the first season. And not coincidentally, that's when it became good. I'm sorry, anybody who, is like a fanboy for Roddenberry. We wouldn't have Star Trek without Roddenberry, but I think his time had come and gone.
I say that he maintained control of that series until the third season, and that's when that series actually became good. And he lost control of that series not because he was replaced, but because he died.
He was the one, by the way, and that not that this is we're talking about Next Generation, but he was the one who was responsible for those terrible uniforms that all the actors complained about in the first couple of seasons, because his reasoning was every shot of the uniform had to be perfectly wrinkle free and had to look as sharp as could be. So they had these uniforms that were one piece that had stirrups in the feet that would drag, that would basically pull their shoulders down. And some of the actors actually developed back problems as a result. So they were thrilled when they finally moved to the really slick two-piece uniforms. Anyway, that's just another.
Don't all the early seasons of Next Generation seem really awkward after the innovation of separates?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But you're right. It wasn't until that third season that it really found its footing and became its own thing. I agree.
So the
Anyway,
so Paramount turns to Harv Bennett. Harv Bennett got his start producing the Mod Squad. He went on to do $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman, Rich Man, Poor Man. Remember that series? That was him. He also produced a series about Golda Meir called A Woman Called Golda, co-starring Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy. I remember that.
Harv
It was
has,
very popular. Yeah.
yeah, Harv has an in with Mr. Spock, and he's going to need
Sure.
it because once again, Leonard Nimoy wants nothing to do with this production. Anyway, so they bring in Harv. Harv is a casual viewer of Star Trek, as most people were. He knew of the series, but wasn't a hardcore fan. So his first order of business is to sit down and watch every single episode of the series, looking for something to tie the movies back to the original series, because the first film was such a fucking out there, nothing to do with anything but picture. And what he finds is season one's Space Seed about Khan Noonien Singh, a 20th century eugenics war conqueror who was frozen with his followers in space, thawed out by the Enterprise, tries to take the Enterprise over. Rather than court-martialing him, they give him the opportunity to be marooned on a planet which he can act as king on, and that's where we left him. What a ripe opportunity to revisit. So Harv Bennett, he comes up with his original story. Let me see. I have it in my notes. Oh, no, these are my wrong notes. Here are my notes. So Bennett writes a treatment called The War of the Generations, which is basically a bunch of space hippies are causing a revolution and taking over planets, and they have to go out to fight them. They send out the Enterprise, and they discover that the leader of the rebels is, in fact, Kirk's son, David, who is being puppeted by Kirk's old enemy, Khan Noonien Singh. Needless to say, everyone hated that treatment. So he turned screenwriting duties over to Jack B. Soward. He refocused it onto Khan only and had Khan stealing the Omega device, the Starfleet's weapon of mass destruction. Everyone really liked this script. They thought it was almost totally there, but not quite. When somebody suggested the screenwriting wunderkind, Nicholas Meyer, who had done the 7% Solution and then written and directed Time After Time, one of the greatest time travel Jack the Ripper stories ever committed to film.
It's fantastic. That's the thing. This was only his second major motion picture. And now he's at the helm of this big science fiction franchise. It's amazing.
Nicholas Meyer, like Harv Bennett, is only a casual fan of Star Trek. He is more of a classicist when it comes to literature and does not understand Star Trek from a science fiction perspective, but really gets it from its actual inspiration, which are the Horatio Hornblower books. So his take is, oh, this is a naval warfare film. I'll write it from that perspective. And also, let me add in all this gravitas between Khan and Kirk. And let me add in all these layers where sequences are going to be. Let me make this a great screenplay, Nicholas Meyer decides, and becomes the director. Happenstance.
Yeah, the quote that I read was Nicholas Meyer called his approach Hornblower in outer space. And that is completely apt for this. We've talked about this a little bit offline, Father Malone, and your contention is one of the best things about this that we'll get into is that this is a naval picture. These are naval battles happening, but they just happen to be happening in outer space, which is really it's even a departure from a lot of the original series episodes. There wasn't a lot of tactical stuff happening like we see here, but it's almost spoiler alert. Kirk and Khan never occupy the same physical space. Everything is Khan's spaceship versus Kirk's ship, the Enterprise. It's amazing. What an innovative approach to the movie, right?
Did you say spoiler alert for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan?
Yeah,
Folks,
somebody
if this
somewhere
is being spoiled, good.
I don't look. We live in a. I don't want to give anybody any reason to go. What? I didn't see it yet. I guess if you haven't seen this 40-year-old movie, then you're listening at your own risk. I guess
Spock dies at the end.
That's what's interesting about that. I dove into a lot of Leonard Nimoy interviews and things like that, and Leonard Nimoy. One of the reasons why he agreed to do this picture was he got the chance to do a death scene with Spock because by then he was really sick of the character and he was always trying to break free of that. But number two, he thought this was going to be the last Star Trek movie. So why not go out with a bang?
Also, much like Jeffrey Katzenberg, who made the pilgrimage from Los Angeles to New York to see Leonard Nimoy on stage and convince him to do Star Trek, Harv Bennett did the exact same thing.
Yeah. Look, I have nothing but love and admiration for Leonard Nimoy. The more that I see interviews and read about him, and I've read his books and everything, and I think all of his grievances with Star Trek are completely, for lack of a better word, they're logical. He wanted
Ghost of Nimoy.
He wanted to be compensated for. He knew his value, and he knew that the leverage that he had the longer the series went on, which is why he eventually is able to transition into directing the pictures because at that point he's irreplaceable. How do you have a Star Trek movie without Spock? You can't. So I have nothing but admiration for the guy. Plus, he's a local guy. He's from Boston. How can you not love him?
From Malden.
See, I thought he was from actual Boston.
No, his temple was in Malden. I apologize.
Ah, yes. That's where he learned how to do the live long and prosper hand thing.
Hey, folks, you're listening to the fucking biggest nerds on planet Earth. I just realized. Let's talk about those uniforms.
I think we agree that these might be the best uniforms, at least for the classic original series movies, because they've moved away from the dull white, pale blue, hospital-looking uniforms from the first movie. Now these are much more in line with they're almost militaristic in a way. They're these kind of maroon uniforms with a little latch in the top right-hand corner that you can unbutton it and the flap comes down so you can open it up if you're looking more casual. They're great. But what I read is a lot of these were reused from the first picture. The reason why they went with red was because that was the dye that could handle the material the best, was this deep red color. I read that somewhere.
God bless.
It works. It works so well. Those are the quintessential.
To be fair,
yeah.
Anything was going to be step above the uniforms from the SS pajama party that we got in the last movie. As far as I'm concerned, we go from the traditional shirt slack boot combo of the 60s straight to Starfleet is now a military organization. Look out, Gene.
These look like I would imagine an organization like Starfleet. They look like you can actually discern ranks. They look more formal. They remind me of dress uniforms that you would see in the armed services now. They work, and the color scheme is a little more exciting. The reds, everything just seems a little darker and more edgy and more grounded look-wise in this.
Including the look of the ships. We get the Reliant here, which is my favorite Starfleet ship ever. That's including up to now. Everything they've come up with since then, nothing as cool as the fucking Reliant. And the great hilarious bit of that is they sent those plans to Harv Bennett, who was in Israel, I believe, making the Golda movie. and he looked at the blueprints for the Reliant upside down and approved it and sent it back. And they were like, what do we do? And I guess we do it that way. So originally it was supposed to be a mini version of the Enterprise, just squat and compact. And then when they got it back, they flipped it upside down, and now it's a badass little fucking fighter.
It is so good looking the way the nacelles are underneath the main saucer section. And the thing of it is, as we get into these intense naval battles with the Enterprise, the Reliant almost has its own character when you see this thing zooming around this little squat ship that's really kicking ass. It's great. It looks different enough where, because I think up to this point, I don't know how many other ships in the fleet we'd seen before in the original series. Did we see a lot of different, this is an Enterprise class vessel or whatever, but did we see other ones like this?
No, we saw other ships. Basically, it would just be other versions of the Enterprise. They just used other shots of the Enterprise flipped, or they changed the insignia or something. But no, we didn't get any real other classes of ships. Certainly not like this. Certainly not what we know now. Back in the day, you could pick up the technical manuals, which had like dozens of variations of Starfleet ships, but we never got to see any of them in the flesh. We just got to look at the blueprints. Did I mention we were nerds? Because I still have my technical manual.
I remember those. Were those like Michael Okuda books? Was he the one who did all those? I think he and his wife actually were responsible for doing all that stuff.
That was all. They took over for Next Generation.
Surprisingly, the more I thought about this as I'm rewatching this, there's a lot of firsts in this movie. Like you said, we have our first look at a vessel that's not the Enterprise, and it's so cool.
They decide early on, obviously, that it isn't just Leonard Nimoy who thinks this might be the last movie. Harv Bennett thinks this is going to be the last movie. Knowing the budget that they've cut him down to, they think they're going to go out with a bang here. But they'll leave it hopeful, obviously, with the ending that we eventually got. Oh, no. Now I forgot what I was saying. Harv Bennett.
Fuck. So not only did Nimoy think it was the finale.
So they decide that they're going to kill Spock at the end of this movie. That's the big secret. And then Star Trek fan groups find out and start freaking out and revealing and starting letter writing campaigns about how fucking angry they are and spreading the word that Spock is going to die to all the fan groups and all the conventions everywhere. And who leaked that information?
Nimoy?
Gene Roddenberry.
Oh, that figures.
In an attempt to derail the production.
Yeah.
Leaks that information, which is, by the way, the movie begins with the Kobayashi Maru scenario, and Spock is killed, as are most of the crew members.
Yeah.
That is because the leak got out. So they thought, let's give it to the audience in the opening scene. They'll forget all about it, and then we'll kill him again at the end. Well, which is exactly what happened. It was genius.
Yeah, because Kirk says when he sees Spock on the turbolift, aren't you dead? And I remember watching it going, they're trying to throw people off the scent of Spock dying. This is their way of saying, yeah, you might have heard that Spock dies. It's just this Kobayashi Maru simulation thing. By the way, this is what I was surprised by. So as we get into this, I think everybody by now is familiar with the concept of the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario, right? It's effectively entered the lexicon. People who aren't even necessarily Star Trek fans might understand the idea of the Kobayashi Maru. What surprised me, Father Malone, is this, for something that is so central to the original series lore of Captain Kirk in particular, this is the introduction, the first mention of the Kobayashi Maru in this movie. And I would have sworn that I had heard about it during the original series or something or other. No, this was an invention for this particular movie, and it is so shocking because it's been so canonized.
Yeah, you're right. It is such an event that you retroactively fit it back into the old series. Yeah, certainly we've seen this before, but no, we've not even heard of this before. And it's one of my favorite bits in the entire thing. And it not only is just a cool thing to learn about these characters and see what they go through, the inner workings of Starfleet, and to hear that Kirk has been a son of a bitch his entire fucking life because he reprogrammed the computer so he could win. But it is actually, this whole movie is, everything mirrors everything else. Everything from the opening gets mirrored in the end. We're presented here at the beginning with a no-win scenario and Kirk not accepting that. And at the end, he has to. And I just like the mirroring there.
Yeah, it works. The Nimoy, these interviews I've seen, he admits that the screenplay, the story for this movie is just strong. It's probably the strongest in the whole series. Everybody, the commonly held perception is that only the even numbered Star Trek movies are any good, right? This happens to be the thing that started that whole notion, is because it is so good and it's so strong. But it is, we're going to talk about this as we get into the fest a little more. And there's some more high points and there's some not so high points, but I would be hard pressed to think of a better complete movie than this one. Story wise, direction, everything works.
It ties back into the original series. So it gives us that. It gives us a more action oriented portion of it, which we get. It doesn't skimp on any of the moral or intellectual problems with the Genesis device and its introduction to the Star Trek universe. And the thing it does, and this is why Nicholas Meyer it deserves all the praise in the world. It does not run from the fact that these are no longer a bunch of people in their early 30s. This movie starts with Captain Kirk's 50th birthday, which must have taken some severe fucking convincing with William Shatner. But that is what actually makes all the difference in this movie. It's that these characters are now older and moved on and should be wiser and should have learned lessons that we watched them learn in the original series. And it's time to start paying those off dramatically. And Nicholas Meyer does that over and over again.
That's the whole notion of Kirk getting older. This is central to this picture. In many ways, this movie is about Kirk learning to accept aging, learning to accept losing people in his life, learning to lose, learning to accept loss and move on. Because this movie begins and Kirk, this is the first movie where Kirk is no longer a captain. He's now Admiral Kirk. This is the start of that. And he ends up on the Enterprise.
He was an admiral in the last movie.
Was he? Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You cut that out. He was an admiral in that, but in this movie, they make it clear that he's struggling with this idea that he feels ineffectual. He's no longer a captain. He doesn't really have that excitement in his life anymore. And there's a great scene with him and Bones where Bones actually tells him, you should get the captaincy back before you really do become an old relic. Don't let that happen. So what ends
the
up
last movie though, they made him an admiral, but it's just like lip service to the fact that they've gotten older. It's like you haven't seen these people on television in 10 years, so we have to do something to prove that they've had lives past it. So we'll make him an admiral. But when we meet Kirk, he's getting on board the Enterprise and taking it over as the captain. So it doesn't matter. Like here, we get to see him being an admiral. We get to see his retired life and the fact that he's thinking about this stuff now. The fact that he realizes he does need these fucking glasses if he wants to read a book.
Yeah. He has all these reminders that maybe his best days, his most exciting days are behind him. And granted, we've had another 5 or 6 movies where we see him vacillate back and forth, becomes comical towards the end where he's still having this dilemma within himself, but it was pretty novel for this particular movie. This is the first time that he's really struggling with that question because, as you said, in the first movie, they just pay lip service to the notion that he's admiral, but there's no internal conflict there. He just decides, I'm the best person to captain the Enterprise, so maybe I'll take over for now. But this one, he's really, it's like a midlife crisis, really, is what he's going through.
And that midlife crisis has a name. That name is Khan from the Eugenics Wars. Remember them back in 94 to 96? Khan was the worst of them, but he was the most stylish. So I was always Team Khan. I still have my Team Khan t-shirt. I don't wear it often because people are still a little touchy about the Eugenics Wars.
The word eugenics doesn't really fly too well these days, nor should it. But he basically was genetically bred to be a superior human. The problem is he was also a psychopath who had delusions of his own grandeur, and he felt like it was his place to rule and to subvert people to his rule, basically. But how
Sounds
we
like
get
king
there is
material. We don't want no kings. Get out of here, Khan, Nooney, and Singh. We're going to freeze you and ship you off to somewhere.
the way they get to Khan, I think is really smart and it's pretty ingenious. Where now Chekhov is on this other ship, the Reliant, the USS Reliant. Is he the first officer? I think he is the first
He
officer
is
there.
Commander Chekhov.
And but Paul Winfield classes up the joint by playing Captain Terrell. They so there's this project called Genesis we have to mention, which is basically a terraforming bomb missile. Basically, it's this ability you shoot this missile at a planet that's dead, that has no life, and this thing has some sort of matrix inside of it that can essentially form life in a matter of hours. Basically, terraform a whole brand new planet with life-giving everything. So the Reliant
And it's run by
is
Carol Marcus, who used to be involved with James T. Kirk off screen
yes,
and bore his son, who is now a grown man and helping her in her research for the Genesis project. For them, Starfleet is out there scouting potential dead planets.
yeah. So they come across this planet called Ceti Alpha 6, which appears to be a dead planet, but they get these faint life readings when they scan.
Got to
Well,
be thorough. Got to be
the mandate
scientific,
is that
baby.
it has to be a dead planet. So Chekhov and Captain Terrell beam down on the planet and they find essentially it's a ship that's been retrofitted as a survival shelter because the planet is basically just a whirling sandstorm continually. And they go poking around this sort of survival shelter. And among other things, they find the markings of this ship called the Botany Bay. And Chekhov,
Botany
all at once,
Bay.
Botany Bay. Oh,
Botany
no. And he freaks out and says to the captain, "We have to get off. Let's get out of here. This is bad." Because he remembers Khan, what they went through. And they go outside. There's something I want to say about this, but they go outside to try and presumably beam back up. And they're greeted by this large coterie of masked figures
They
waiting
look like
for them
space
outside.
Bedouins.
They just look odd. They're all dressed in black from head to
Metal
toe.
visors. Oh man, they're so scary.
Here's the thing.
I love them.
Here's something that didn't occur to me, and I'm sure there's a good explanation for this, Father Malone. But we're gonna spend a little bit of time poking holes in this movie that we both love. Don't get me wrong.
Why are
But
they all
the
just
first-
standing there?
No, why? When Chekhov realizes the situation they're in, why didn't he then immediately say, "Chekhov to Reliant, two to beam up, get us out of here"? There's no explanation given. It's not like they say, "We can't get a lock on their fix. There's something jamming our frequencies." Why didn't they immediately transport off of this godforsaken planet? Do you know why?
Do you want the nerd reason that's not featured in the film and therefore can be easily dismissed?
Anything.
It was
to try
it
and
was
explain
hard
this
enough
away.
to beam them down onto that windswept, stormy planet outside. Never mind within a structure. They needed to get outside in order to beam up. But as soon as they got outside, they were surrounded by Khan's people.
Look, if they beam off, then there is no movie, such as it is. So I will accept that. But it's certainly never called out or explained in the context of the movie. I thought that was a bit of an oversight. If all they had to do was say, have a shot from the Reliant saying, "We can't get a fix on their coordinates. We'll keep trying." That way that they can't
I'm going to
communicate with
assume
the ship.
I assume that happened, and I don't need them to slow the plot down or the reveal of Khan to let us know that they have indeed thought of the fact that they can't emergency beam them off the planet.
That's fair. Like I said, it's just a little nerdy
Plus,
thing
maybe
that occurred to me.
Chekhov is just a panicky sort, my man, and he was just like, "Oh my God, it's Khan! We gotta get out of here."
So what ensues is something you talked about, Poltergeist scarring you. This scene that comes up.
Okay, no, but before
scarred
we get
me.
there, I do want to say, because you said it was ingenious. They think they're on Ceti Alpha 6, which is a dead
Well,
planet.
we're getting to that.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But SETI Alpha 6 blew up. It fell out of its orbit and was destroyed, thus wrecking the entirety of the planet of SETI Alpha 5, making it seem, because now it has shifted its own orbit, as if it is SETI Alpha 6. Which
And that
I know
is the
there's a
crux.
whole bunch of nerd discourse out there about the impossibility of this, and that SETI Alpha 6 they would have known because of the wobble in its orbit, and blah 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 blah. Just go with this.
That doesn't bother me, but what I came away from watching this again was so that is the crux of Khan's gripe. Okay. Captain Kirk and his crew marooned them on this planet, thinking that they were going to be, it had life and it offered them a fair chance to survive. And then this catastrophe happened. Khan's problem is that Kirk never checked up on them. And you know what? I have to say, he's got a great fucking point, Father Malone. There was no follow up. Okay, let's make sure that as much as we don't want to deal with these criminals, we can't just leave them there and hope that they're going to survive. Like, we have a responsibility. They are effectively military prisoners at that point. What I have to admit, as much of a psychopath as Khan is, I'm forced to agree with him on this. That's his big thing. This happened, and through the course of those events, he lost his wife in addition to a good portion of his loyal crew.
Not only is Captain Kirk derelict in not checking up on these people
Yeah.
that he left on this planet, he's derelict in not letting Starfleet know that a genocidal madman who is incredibly capable has been marooned on a planet, and maybe we ought to keep an eye on him. What
Because
happens if Khan is able to use a radio to lure a ship down and then do what he wanted to do anyway? Somebody should be keeping an eye on him. Kirk, you're all the way wrong.
He's wrong. And Khan doesn't age like normal people do. He's effectively hundreds of years old. So he could be a menace or a potential menace for dozens, if not hundreds of more years. He's got nothing but time to figure out. And he's also incredibly smart because of his genetic engineering. So yes, he's very justified in his hatred of Kirk in this case. And Kirk should be at the very least reprimanded for dereliction of duty. That I have to admit, like that, it didn't occur to me as a kid because you're just watching this for the action and the fun. But my God, Khan is not exactly wrong here.
No, man. Nicholas Meyer's bringing the pathos. Look out, everybody has a justification, and we're going to fucking be on board for it.
Seriously. But the thing that I was getting to, which is the thing that scarred me about this, is that so Khan is holding Tyrell and Chekhov prisoner, and he's expositioning all of this stuff about what happened to the planet. And there's this cage, this lucite cage with something moving in the sand. And he says, I want to introduce you to the only other native life on Ceti Alpha 5. And it's this, I don't know, this weird creature, this spider-like, not spider, but like.
It's a slug.
It's a slug.
With mandibles, and it has the young that are in the folds of its gross little body.
He pokes at this thing with these little
It's very
tools.
violent, too. It's angry. It's an angry
it
slug.
hisses, yeah. And
Get away from me with those forceps, Khan.
And like any good villain, he starts describing to Tyrell and Chekhov what he's about to do to them, which is what happened to his wife is this creature, this slug-like creature has the larva that eventually they find their way into your ears and they wrap themselves around your cerebral cortex, which not only does it make you susceptible to suggestion, but it eventually leads to madness and death. And this is what happened to his wife. She succumbed to these larvae. Even watching it now, it's hard. The soundtrack is very discordant and scary, and it was a lot for a 9-year-old to take in. It's like torture, really scary stuff.
Yeah, it was a great year for fucking our heads up.
Seriously, they don't make movies like this. Like they used to trust that kids could get through this kind of stuff. Now it's not the case, but boy.
Yeah, and
it's pretty brutal.
And it continues the new trend of, geez, what do we do with Chekhov in this movie? I don't know. Can we brutalize him in some way?
It's true. The last movie he got burned at his station, and didn't really do much beyond that. But so what Khan has done is he has made Tyrell and Chekhov his slaves to lure the Reliant. That's Grace Jones, great album. No, he has seen his path to a starship. He's going to basically lure the crew of the Reliant down, take over the ship, and then he's going to seek out Kirk and have his revenge. So Khan has seized his opportunity like any good megalomaniac would do.
And thank God he's doing it because we wouldn't have much of a movie without him.
No.
Yeah, and okay, so Khan, thanks to taking over the Reliant, discovers the plans for Project Genesis and figures, oh, that's a good weapon. And if I have that, then Starfleet will have to bargain with me. So off he goes to get Genesis. I'd like to point out that I'm sure every podcast ever has pointed out that the Genesis sequence made by ILM, completely computer generated, the first ever fully CGI sequence committed to film from beginning to end, which is the planet being terraformed, going from dead rock to living forests and oceans and stuff. And I also like to point out that in early 1993, I went to see Frank Black at the Vine Theater in Hollywood, and the opening act was Mazzy Star. And for the entirety of Mazzy Star's set, behind them, they played the Genesis sequence.
It's a great sequence. It
on
really
a
is.
loop over and over. It was hypnotizing.
It was real cool stuff to see in 1982. I'd never seen anything like that. But I have to say, along with that, not to say that these are all computer generated, but all of the Enterprise's gauges and view screens and everything, they all had an upgrade in this movie. So instead of just having weird repeating flashing lights or strange optical illusions that looped, we actually had at one point they show the shields being raised and there's an actual skim, like a computer view of the Enterprise with the shield going up or them targeting things, and you see the target of the ship. It all looked really cool. It felt more like a real ship, a bridge, and less like just a set that we put a bunch of blinking lights and had them conveying that idea.
Or the eventual Apple store that J.J. Abrams would make of the bridge. This feels like something that you would actually be in outer space. And if it came to battle, then this is the bridge you want to be in.
Even when we get on the Enterprise, we should say the Admiral Kirk is there because Spock is leading effectively a training mission with a bunch of cadets. They're going to take the Enterprise out for a little bit of a training mission. And when he gets there, Admiral Kirk inspects like the engine room. Even something like the engine room felt so much more real because it looked like an engine room. There's a lot of doors that are like clear lucite because you'd have to look inside and see the engine working and tubes and even some of the costuming when things go south in the engine room. Like they have these triage masks that they have to wear. It all looked really like it felt grounded and real to me.
I will say that's one holdover from Star Trek: The Motion Picture is the engineering outfits, those sort of the bubble-armed white outfits. They're great, man, because once they start getting scorched up, they really show the burn marks, don't they?
There's a lot of blood in this. There's a lot of burns and a lot of characters that get burned on half of their face. It happens a lot in this picture. We'll get to it, but it makes for an interesting tableau to see somebody. It's Gus Fring in Breaking Bad when he meets his end and he gets up and half of his face is just a skull. It's not to that degree, but it's definitely a little jarring to see that much blood.
It would be if they made Wrath of Khan today. They did make Wrath of Khan today, and they didn't do it. So what are we talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not going to shut my mouth.
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to it. But it's a good sort of thing to hang the story on because effectively the Enterprise has an untested crew that has never been out in space before, including what we learned. Back up for a minute. I should mention I watched the director's cut of Star Trek II. Now, for many years, the only thing available was the theatrical cut. And there are some differences, primarily dealing with Scotty's nephew, who was a trainee in the engine room. It's implied in the theatrical cut that he is related to Scotty, but it's not explicit like the director's cut. Did you watch the director's cut too, Father Malone?
Oh, yeah, of course I did.
Okay.
And a lot of the scenes that are in the director's cut had shown up on television when they had finally broadcast it there, where they would take stuff out and put stuff in for timing and whatever. So I had seen the scenes with his son. I had seen the scenes with his nephew, knowing that it was his nephew, definitely, and then been puzzled for years afterwards, wondering where those moments went and did I imagine them? And I must have read it in the book or something. But yeah, it's there.
It is. It's definitely better being made more. Like I said, I was able to connect the dots. There's a reason why eventually when Khan attacks the Enterprise and all these casualties happen, including this fresh-faced trainee, Scotty is completely broken up over the whole thing. I figured that he was a nephew. I knew he wasn't his son or anything, but that's one of the. Sorry, go ahead.
I guess Scotty's sibling married an American and moved to America because no trace of that Scottish brogue, no trace of the Scottishness, and
No, not at all.
in that kid from Escape to Witch Mountain.
I knew I recognized him from somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that weird upturned nose.
Yeah, he looks like a Disney contract actor.
And that's what he is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's one of the brilliant things about Khan's plot is he has stolen the Reliant, and the Reliant intercepts the Enterprise. The Enterprise doesn't know what's going on. They just figure that the Reliant is
We are part of one
Reliant.
big happy fleet.
Yeah. And before they know what's going on, Khan attacks them unprovoked, which is where all these mass casualties on the Enterprise happen. This is something that it was like revelatory. It's so sudden and so violent and so evil that he would steal this ship and just kick Kirk's butt. I mean, Kirk is left with his pants around his ankles effectively. He doesn't know what's going on. And what ends up happening is that Khan, almost immediately after doing this, wants to dictate terms of Kirk's surrender. Kirk has no choice but to try to bargain with him while he tries to figure out some way out of this no-win situation.
I'm just thinking about all the dialogue in this scene, HB. While you're talking, all I'm hearing is their shields are down. Raise ours. They're arming phasers. Shields up.
It's so tense because we've seen Kirk in the original series go through tough situations. His back has been up against the wall countless times, but this feels that there's more at stake because it feels like the Enterprise could be destroyed right then and there. He's got no choice but to try and bargain with this madman while he figures this out. And sure enough, like I know you have your problems with the solution that he comes up with. I still am thrilled by it every time I watch it.
No. I don't have a problem with it. I just think once Khan learns that you can use a spaceship's prefix to lower their shields, that he himself would use that eventually.
You would figure, but again, if I'm then going to do what you did, which is put my own nerd hat on and try to
look,
it doesn't
really matter because the Enterprise after this is fucked anyway. So they go into the Mutara Nebula at the end because they need to even up the score. Like they're crippled basically. I don't think Khan lowering the shields would have mattered anyway, but it's just something that occurred to me while I was watching it. Once you tell Khan something, he's going to use it against you.
But you have to admit, it's still every bit as thrilling now as it was then. Because I remember as a kid
here's the
watching
thing.
this.
This movie threw off the shackles that that a space battle has to be a dogfight. These are frigates, and it is just as tense and as exciting. That lead up when the ships are facing each other for the first time are as exciting as anything I've seen. And it's just two giant ships slowly gliding toward one another. The actual battle portion of it is just to use a phrase later, sauce for the goose. Like that,
Right.
the sort of the build up to that is the entire thing for me.
But Khan says to Kirk, look, you have 60 seconds to
I'll give you 60
me-
seconds for you and your valiant crew.
So he's given him all of a minute to send over all of the information on Genesis and give himself up for his crew, or Khan is going to destroy the Enterprise regardless. So he's got a minute. Kirk and company have a minute to figure out a way through this. And I'm on the edge of my seat. How is he going to get through this? And when he actually does it, it's so satisfying as a viewer to reason his way out of it.
Nothing.
But then after that, he has to reckon with the idea. So you have this moment of triumph with Kirk, but then almost immediately,
Scotty is such a bummer.
Yeah, Scotty has gone up the turbo lift holding his dying nephew in his arms. And the nephew, by the way, is the first of our half face burnt characters. It was just a thing. And he gets his own death scene with Kirk where he's in sickbay and he says, "Is the word given, Admiral?" And Kirk says, "Yeah, warp speed." And then the kid just expires right then and there. It's pretty brutal. And then Scotty, the waterworks start, and he doesn't understand what happened. And
Only I had
but
warned him, being the head of engineering and everything. Oh,
so they've damaged Khan to the degree where now he has to retreat and repair the ship. So their blood vengeance battle has to hold for now. But in the meantime, Khan has gone to the space station Regular One, where the Genesis weapon or the Genesis device is held with all the scientists. And this is also where it gets brutal. Father
this movie
Malone.
is so fucking brutal, man.
Eventually, the Enterprise makes their way over to the space station to see what's going on, and they find it completely deserted. And McCoy is one of the people who's on a landing party who's looking, and there's nobody. They can't find anybody there, and McCoy's looking, and then he turns around, and there's it's like a Friday the 13th type sting, and he runs into a dead body that is hanging from its feet upside down. His throat has been slit. And McCoy is, Jim, you've got to see this. He's horrified, as he would be, justifiably horrified. But
And then
Khan is,
Kelly, he says the first motherfucker you ever hear in the Star Trek universe. He looks at all the bodies like, motherfucker. Or maybe that was the director's cut. Was that? I don't know.
I wanted to talk a little bit before we go any further. You mentioned Kirstie Alley is in this picture. She plays
Speaking of the
Saavik.
director's cut,
So she plays Saavik, who is another Vulcan. She's, I think, the navigator on the Enterprise, and she is
Spock's replacement.
Spock's replacement. Exactly. Can I be really honest for a minute? No real disrespect to Kirstie Alley, because I thought she was great on Cheers. Don't think she's very good in this picture, Father Malone. I never really liked Kirstie Alley as Saavik. I much preferred Robin Curtis that we get in Star Trek 3 and 4. What did you think?
Would you have preferred the original choice? Kim Cattrall.
She was the original choice here?
Nicholas Meyer's original choice for Saavik was Kim Cattrall. And you know this to be true because when Star Trek 6 rolls around, he has another chance to cast a Vulcan, and he casts Kim Cattrall.
Right. No, I would say no. I really liked Robin Curtis that we're going to see in Star Trek 3. I thought she's great.
Definitely the most Vulcan.
Yeah.
Of the three performances. But I would counter that this is another half Vulcan.
But that doesn't matter to me. It's her performance. She feels a little more wooden here. There's something in the way she's delivering her lines. There's almost not a smirk, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot going on. I don't feel like there's a lot of internal stuff happening. I don't know. She just feels flat to me. She feels flat and wooden to me.
It feels like an actor who doesn't understand science fiction going, I don't know, just what am I saying? Okay, whatever.
Yeah. It's what you said. Robin Curtis was Vulcan to me. And I think it just needed that. And she's so central in a lot of ways to a lot of these scenes. She's in it a lot. And I wish she was better. I really do. But I can't. She may be one of the biggest missteps in this movie for me.
Disagree. I think she's real pretty and I like looking at her.
I'm not disputing her beauty. That's fine. But if you're going to cast somebody just for their beauty, you could have cast 100 other actresses to do the same thing and be as wooden and as.
They should have cast young Alice Kriege, the eventual Borg queen. She would have been a fucking phenomenal Vulcan.
She would have been great. You could have gotten a dozen other actresses who would have done a better job. And again, no disrespect to her, because I think she's actually a very good comedic actress. And I think she's done great work in other things. I just don't feel like it took me out of the movie a little bit this last time I watched it. I just felt like that's a little bit of a gaping hole there where there should be something a little more solid.
Let's name the worst actresses to potentially be cast as Vulcans. I'll start. Terry Garr.
Ruth Buzzy. E3.
Dee Wallace. You know what? I bet she would actually turn it out. If you put her in the wig, gave her those bangs in the fucking ears, I bet Dee Wallace would have gotten into it and been a Vulcan.
I think she could have.
Dee Wallace would have been a good. Remove her from the list.
Yeah, no, totally agree there. Jane Fonda.
Nah, I bet she'd be good. She was Barbarella
You
after all.
think?
She gets
All
sci-fi.
right.
She knows it.
Okay, then forget that. Lily Tomlin. Perfect.
She'd be good. Lily
Oh,
Tomlin would be
come
a good
on.
Vulcan. She'd be a good Vulcan. You know it.
Gilda Radner.
Good Vulcan.
No way.
Dolly Parton.
Not a chance. I knew you were going to go Dolly
Well,
Parton.
because
I
we're
think
named
that's,
9 to 5 characters.
but that's too easy. She didn't start out as an actress. Shelley Long. We're going to keep with the
Shelley
cheer.
Long would have been good.
Would have been good.
Diane Lane.
No, she could have been good. She's got a dramatic side. I think she would have been fantastic.
I may be saying that ironically to my premise here because I think Diane Lane actually would have been a great fucking choice for Savick.
I actually think Carrie Fisher could have done a good job too.
Jeez. There were so many people that you would have preferred to Kirstie
There
Alley.
was a lot. And again, I feel bad because, rest in peace, Kirstie Alley, what have you. But it doesn't give me pleasure to say what I'm saying, but I don't think she was right for this.
We'll play a blaster beam in her honor.
You know that the guy who invented and played the blaster beam.
You mean Craig Huxley?
Craig Huxley. He composed the music that plays underneath the Genesis video that you talked about, the computer generated demonstration. That's his music playing underneath that.
Yeah, man, it's a nice tie to the first film and James Horner's reverence to Jerry Goldsmith. James Horner taking over composing duties here. And
let's talk about that for a little bit.
Oh my God. Look, it sounds remarkably like his score to Battle Beyond the Stars, but I'm not going to hold that against him because this is a great score.
I thought it was wonderful. It has the rousing numbers that you need for these moments of triumph, but there's some beautifully dark pieces of music that relate specifically to Khan.
Oh my God, that one motif with the horns, just that.
Yeah.
That's all
it
you
feels
need.
a little
Okay, Khan's
unhinged.
on the way.
Yeah, it's fantastic. To me, it feels more modern than Jerry Goldsmith's the motion picture score, and it's
way more immediate. It's less flighty.
If I squint a little bit, it almost feels a little bit like John Williams taking a stab at a Star Trek score because it has motifs and themes that kind of come back and we revisit, but it has all this great discordant stuff, propulsive. It's awesome. I loved this soundtrack. In some ways, I like it. I loved how lavish and lush the motion picture score was. But if I'm being honest, I think I like this score a little bit more as a piece of music.
I think the motion picture score is appropriate for that movie, but that movie is an outlier as far as the rest of the Star Trek films go. If we could forget it, we would. There's just so much weirdness about it. From the uniforms on up. It's
a miracle that they even made a second one, despite the fact that it was so successful at the box office. It was such a weird movie, and it was hard to see a way through that. And all credit goes to Harv Bennett for figuring it out.
But the first movie was a big success. I remember my Happy Meal from McDonald's. The very first Happy Meal tie-in was with Star Trek.
Wow.
Where I remember the box itself, and they had like a little Klingon puzzle they had to solve on it. That's all I remember. I do wonder if they had some sort of V'ger toy to give away. This probe was sent out by mankind, and now he wants to stuff the kids
your
love.
Happy Meal.
Yeah. Here's Spock in quiet contemplation.
So it came with a little like reproduction. It looks like a walkie-talkie.
Oh yeah.
It says Star Trek on it.
I had
looks like some stickers or some iron-on transfers with the Federation iconography. There is a little game, like a little board game inside of it where you have to make it to V'ger.
Aye.
Like it's basically just a piece of paper that you fold out and you can play a game on it. The box has all these fake buttons and screens, like as if it was electronic. Wow. It's pretty surprising. It's very elaborate.
And the commercial featured a Klingon.
Did it really? Oh, it had a ring. It had a plastic ring that had a picture of the Enterprise that you could put on.
And a little note telling you how sad all of these proceedings are and how little you can relate to this franchise at this present time.
Here's a trivia question for you. How much do you think a Happy Meal back then with a hamburger and with a cheeseburger, what do you think the price breakdown is? How much you figure it would be with cheeseburger, which is the more expensive of the two options?
$1.50.
You are so close. It's $1.58 back then. 1980.
Anyway, let's get back to Star Trek, shall we?
Yes, sir. Let's do it. So we were talking about
We're talking about beaming down to the planet where the actual Genesis project is after Kirk is reunited with Carol Marcus and his petulant son Merritt Buttrick from Square Pegs. I'm going to keep saying that.
do you know Merritt Buttrick was all of 29 years old when he passed away?
That's horrible.
So young, so young.
And he was on Square Pegs,
He was on
the
Square
new
Pegs.
wave television series that lasted 2 seasons on CBS.
Well, I can still hear the theme in my mind. I watched
Square
it.
Pegs, Square Pegs, Square Pegs. Always, never quite right.
Part of the reason why they hired him specifically is because he physically looked like he could be the offspring of James Kirk and Carol Marcus because his hair was curly like William Shatner's, but physically he resembled Carol Marcus. I actually think that's pretty smart because you look at him and you can actually see both of them in his face. Yes, he's petulant and he's a little bit, seems a little moody for somebody who's like a highfalutin scientist, but I always liked Merritt Buttrick. I always thought he was a decent actor back then.
Did you ever read Gene Roddenberry's notes on Nick Meyer's version of the screenplay?
No, how critical was he?
It's all really stupid stuff. Like when we meet Carol Marcus and David, he's complaining about Starfleet and how they're basically a military organization and he doesn't like dealing with them. And one of Roddenberry's notes was these scientists would not be speaking ill of Starfleet. They wouldn't
That's
be
bullshit.
they would not disparage them. They're not a military organization. They're one of exploration. Like, Gene, we got it. That was the 60s, man. What, like, people are going to have a problem with Starfleet. Get the fuck over it already. It is not a utopia you created. We need to have some drama.
That's one of the most realistic things in the movie, I thought, which is that these scientists have an innate suspicion of the military because they know the capabilities of the Genesis device. And this is a common refrain with any scientific discovery. They're worried that it could be applied to some sort of dreadful military application. I buy that. I think their concerns are warranted. We see that play out here.
Absolutely. Look, the Genesis device is one of a peace thing. It's an idea to terraform, to bring life to the lifeless, but it can just as easily be shot into a planet that is already populated and destroy everything. They've got some blood on their hands too, them there scientists blaming Starfleet. But look, there's plenty of blame to go around. This is not the future Zootopia, the future Fruitopia that fucking Roddenberry kept going on about.
That kind of, I don't know, optimism, like willfully blinded optimism can only get you so far. And that works a lot better, I think, to a great degree with the next generation, as we'll talk about when we get into those movies. That is a utopia that I can buy, that I feel it feels real to me without being cloying. But
Starting
yeah,
in season 3, when Gene Roddenberry was no longer
right.
around, and the writers were like, "Oh man, we can actually do stories that are involving and people can relate to, as opposed to this godlike race of humans out in the future benevolently deigning to bring lesser races into the fantastic Starfleet."
Yeah. What was the Spock thing? IDIC? Was it infinite diversity in commonality or something? He wanted to market necklaces with the IDIC. It was like his way of marketing the Spock character. You ever hear about
Roddenberry.
that? Yeah. IDIC necklaces.
So another way to make a buck off of Nimoy.
So it turns out they're still under the influence of the mind worms, and they send the coordinates to Khan, who beams up the Genesis device, but not before Tyrell finally goes crazy when he's ordered to kill Kirk. He turns the phaser. It's another horrible tableau that plays out in front of us. He turns the phaser on himself. And there's something about the way that the people who are shot with phasers scream. in this, it just seems like an awful way to die, to shoot
and
yourself.
the way that they de-res, as it were,
Yeah.
is horrible. It seems like patchwork, like you're going in pieces slowly, as opposed to
Like you
before
feel
would,
it, yeah.
yeah, you would
You
just get shot
feel
with a
it,
phaser
yeah.
and fall over. Your body would light up for a second and go, ooh, fall over. And in the original series here, it's slow disintegration, and it's very painful.
It looks awful. But fortunately, Chekhov screams and he falls down in this.
Fortunately, oh man, we talk
The
about
slug,
plot hole weirdness.
yeah, the slug crawls out of his ear and Kirk kills it. So fortunately,
Chekhov's chess playing Russian brain was just too strong for that one.
so it looks like old Kirk is met his match. There's nothing. He's stuck in this planet. But
Okay,
and I don't think,
here is one of
yeah,
the
you don't
problems
like
I
this
have with the
either.
movie. We discussed this.
Yeah.
I will go on hurting you. I will leave you as you left me, buried alive. Okay, bye. Mr. Spock, please take the Enterprise to the nearest starbase and return here with an armada. Also, you might want to start tracking the Reliant and fuck them up, because there's more than one ship in this Starfleet.
I can
We'll
counter
be
that.
down here in the Genesis cave eating delicious looking apples.
My counter to that would be we already know that the Enterprise is in no shape to go toe to toe with the Reliant.
They should have
and in
already left. As soon as they beamed off, the Enterprise should have turned tail and done exactly what they broadcast. Go find a starbase, return with an armada.
I don't think the Enterprise could go that. I don't think it could go on anything but impulse power at this point. It can't warp away. It can't travel fast.
That's correct.
What are the odds Khan wouldn't find them on his sensors and then just take them out?
At that
Pretty good, I'd say.
At that moment, Khan was just as fucked up as they were.
No, he'd done his repairs. He was better off.
No, they beamed over to regular one because they knew they had time, because Khan was fucked at that point.
But in the meantime, he had the time to do repairs on his ship. That's why he retreated. Remember, the Enterprise is not going anywhere. We have to retreat. We have to withdraw. He says that.
Listen, people make decisions in the moment, and I'm not saying that everything we see on screen isn't totally valid, and this criticism isn't coming from a place of 45 or so years of watching this goddamn movie.
Yeah.
I just want to say that tactically, James T. Kirk, who beat the Kobayashi Maru, would have said, go get help.
I choose to believe that the situation was still so tenuous that he couldn't afford to put the Enterprise at risk. I hear what you're saying, but I don't necessarily buy it completely.
All power to the communications array. Uhura, please do your stuff.
Khan would have picked up on it, and that would have been it. He would
Picked
have
up
jammed
on what? The fucking transmission that they made to like the nearest frigate or fucking dreadnought of the Starfleet Armada?
He would have jammed all frequencies. There's nothing they could have done.
Get out of here. And speaking of, there's the other problem with the movie, right? They're like, we can't see him. We think he's on the other side of this planet. And then later, when they get back on the ship, they bring up tactical, and it shows exactly where they are.
Nevertheless,
talk your way out of that plot hole, buddy.
Let me switch gears for a minute. And this is in no way a capitulation, Father Malone. I merely want to get this in before I forget about it. Now, I want to talk a little bit. So Carol Marcus is played by actress Bibi Besh, right? When I watched this movie as a 9-year-old, she seemed so old to me. Both her and Kirk seemed old. Like the idea that they had this adult son, I just figured, wow, they're old. She was all of 40 years old at the time, Father Malone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
She was 12 years younger than us now.
Yeah, I know. I'm an old man. So are you. What are you trying to do here?
We're so goddamn old. Kirk Shatner was 51 at the time.
Which is the character's age. And it would make sense that he would have had a dalliance with a woman 10 years his.
I will say this is the dawning of the sort of paunchy Shatner.
Oh, man. You know? But thank God this particular uniform, belts.
Very flattering.
Yeah. It won't be flattering by the time we get to, say, Generations.
True. But he was...
I cannot use the control panel, Captain.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it occurred to me as I was watching this. Wow, I can't believe how young she actually was. And that kind of, how old are we meant to believe that David Marcus was in this? 22, 23?
Yeah, around there.
I guess she would have had to have been about 18 years old when she had him, because
She
any
could have
less
been in
than
her
that.
20s. Just the actors' ages don't really matter. Say she's 40 and he's 50 in this movie, and he met her 20 years ago when he was 30 and she was 20, and they had a fling on Regula 9 or whatever the fuck. And
I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. When they're in the Genesis cave biding their time, Kirk and Savick and McCoy. That's when we learn the truth about the Kobayashi Maru, which is that the only reason Kirk was able to win is because he cheated. He reprogrammed the simulation so that it was possible to save the ship that was in the neutral zone.
I don't
And that's
believe in
where
the no-win scenario.
and that will come back to haunt Kirk, as we'll see at the end of this movie, because that's exactly what he is faced with. But again, it just knocks me out that the Kobayashi Maru wasn't something that was mentioned in the original series, because it's so ingrained in the lore of Star Trek at this point.
And can I just say, we're going to get there eventually, but the fucking J.J. Abrams' first Star Trek movie, where they show the Kobayashi Maru, they show
Yeah,
him beating it, is the worst representation of that. Like, we'd all imagined, and so in some way, we had all fan fictioned it, so nothing was going to satisfy seeing that. But the way they do it, where he's so cavalier that he's just whatever, and he's like chewing on an apple and shit. I
yeah,
was just like, so he was just like basically should have walked in with a sandwich board that said "I cheated."
basically. But what I think the only interesting thing to come out of that is, as Shatner says, or as Kirk says in this, he was given a commendation for original thinking, for figuring out a way through this thing. But in the Abrams retelling, it's the exact opposite. He doesn't get a commendation. He's actually brought before like the board, the administration, to answer for, he could get expelled for what he did, basically. I thought that was maybe the only interesting thing to come out of this is, in actual fact, if a student went in and reprogrammed the simulation and cheated, they wouldn't be applauded for it. They would probably be put up before the academic board for cheating. I
No,
don't know.
but Kirk in Star Trek 2 is not saying I got caught. He's saying I reprogrammed it and they gave me a commendation because I solved their problem. In the Abrams one, he gets caught and then they put him up on trial. Now, the Abrams one could have been saved, in my opinion, if they catch him and then give him a commendation for innovative thinking.
That's fair. We'll get to that. We got a few movies to make our way through. But in the meantime,
Let's
here
get
we
to the
are.
Matara Nebula, shall we?
Yes, Kirk and company are beamed back aboard the Enterprise. There was some subterfuge with the terminology that Spock and Kirk used, leading Khan to believe it would take days for the Enterprise to be repaired, but in fact, it only took a few hours to get them to a minimal state of
That's some
operation.
naval shit going on, some naval codes. They got a
Yeah.
bosun's whistle in this. Speaking of the Navy, we've never seen that on the Enterprise
Yeah,
before.
I love that. I love that.
There's a no
They
smoking sign on the bridge.
It's a sign of the times. So they decide, or they figure out, that they're near this thing called the Mutara Nebula. And they know that if they enter into this nebula, their shields and anything tactical will effectively be rendered useless. But they also know that if they can entice Khan into there, they'll be on even footing, because then Khan will be as blind, as defenseless as they are.
He doesn't want us going in there.
It's so they go in there.
Kirk is so full Kirk at the end of this. He is in
Yeah,
so full control. This is the culmination of everything from the television series. All the bravado, all of the skill, all of the like what we expected from Captain Kirk as a capable Starfleet captain is fully on display here.
exactly. He is in Captain Kirk mode here, because he knows this is their only chance, and he's so confident in his ability to outmaneuver Khan. Because as Spock says to him, Khan, in all of our dealings with him, Khan has shown a remarkable. He only seems to deal in two-dimensional thinking. And Kirk recognizes this means, okay, we're in starships, we're in this space. It's not just about an X and a Y axis. There's a Z axis that we're dealing with. He knows that he can outmaneuver Khan in this nebula and get behind him, get the drop on him. And in fact, that's exactly what he ends up doing. He, like any good naval battle, he outflanks Khan's ship, the Reliant, and basically they go at it. And it's a great sequence. It's very tense, but it's also got those rousing moments where he gets the upper hand.
And that sequence was born of Nicholas Meyer talking to the people at the who were doing the effects, and they had to explain to him, "You're in space, so it's not like a naval battle. You can go up this way and that way." And
Yeah.
him going, "Oh, okay, let me write that into the script."
And it's great. So they have this effectively this naval battle, and Kirk's gambit works. He shoots the shit out of the Reliant, and the Reliant has lost one of its nacelles. And Khan is in fact mortally wounded at that point. And we get yet another person whose face is burned on one half. I don't know what the obsession was with this, but Khan has this like Freddy Krueger look on one half of his face. And as a
It's
last
gruesome without being too much.
Sure. And you can tell that he can't use one of his arms because what he does is, as a last ditch measure, he sets the Genesis device to detonate, to self destruct on the ship. But to do that, he's got to reach up with his one good hand and do this little spinny thing, which actually looks quite real for something that's got to unlock this Genesis device. But he sets it to self destruct.
Montalban's performance here convinced young me that action in these movies might have consequence beyond somebody just falling over and either being dead or recovering in the next scene. He's playing his injuries so fucking realistically and painfully. Yeah. It's hard to watch.
It is because you can tell that he doesn't have much long left. He looks awful, and his movements convey that. So he sets the Genesis to self-destruct effectively, and the Enterprise. There's a problem with the warp drive, and the Enterprise can't. There's no way they can get away in time to avoid the destruction of this. And this is where many tears were shed because Spock realizes that he's got to try and figure out some way to do this. So Spock mind melds with McCoy and says, "Remember." And that was actually something that Nicholas Meyer and Nimoy talked about because they wanted to leave this remote possibility that maybe Spock, this is science fiction, we could bring Spock back possibly, but we need to leave ourselves an out to figure out how are we going to bring him back? How does he possibly survive this awful end? And that's what they did. It was actually Nimoy's idea to use the word remember because they're like, what does he say? What does he do? What does he do? Remember. It's so vague that you can almost make anything out of it. But I give them full credit for keeping their options open because they felt good about this movie. Everyone talked about how great the story was and how awesome it was coming together. Nimoy, I think, was seeing the possibility of, you know what, maybe this could lead to other things. Maybe this isn't the end after all. So I got to keep my options open. So that's what he does. He mind melds with McCoy in the vaguest terms possible, just in case he was to come back. And it was pretty prescient.
Pickup shots. It was done way after. That was not part of the original shooting. Not part of principal photography. That is them literally covering their asses and going, got to get something in there in case we need Spock to come back. Because Nimoy's got cold feet because we got a winner on our hands.
But what ensues is what every diehard Trek fan was dreading, which is Spock takes the cap off and it's like this jet of energy that shoots up that he's got to put his hands in and rejigger something and do something to this warp engine. It still looks really good. The effect is actually very effective because it's almost like he's got this blast of radiation that he's fighting against to fix the warp engine. And whatever he does works. And we cut to the bridge and I think like Sulu says, "Oh, we have full power restored, Captain." And what's great is Kirk says, "All right, Scotty, you've done it. Let's get out of here." And they get out because he thinks, it's just a miracle worker doing his thing again. This is what Scotty does. He doesn't
realize the price that he's about to pay.
Right. He hasn't even. He
doesn't realize that for hate's sake, Khan has spit his last breath at him.
Kirk looks over at Spock's station and realizes, oh shit, Spock's not here. He puts two and two together and he races down to the engine room. He even does this thing where he's coming down a ladder and instead of going down rung after rung, he kind of holds the outside, and slides all the way down. Did you notice that he did that move?
Of course, it's the first time I ever saw it when I was a kid, and it made me just want to do that every time I got near a ladder.
It's like a swashbuckling move. And he rushes over to the engine room and he's going to open it. And McCoy and Scotty stop him. Scotty's words are still, they get to me. Scotty, he says, well, you'll flood the whole compartment. Don't open it. It's radiation.
I
And
know, man. I think of that line too, and I just
well, no, no,
tear
no,
up
no.
sometimes.
No, he says, the line is, he says, Spock. And Scotty says, he's dead already. He's not actually dead, but the gravity of that is pretty heavy because he once he realizes that Kirk is there, he Spock, who's been radiated and his skin, it looks a little melty and not good. He gets up, and what the best part of this is that he gets up and he actually straightens his uniform. He's dying right there in front of us, but he still wants to straighten his uniform
It's
and
a
look
Vulcan.
he looked presentable for the captain. So he goes over. We all know the conversation. We've seen this scene a million times.
The best
It's
part
still,
is that he walks into that pillar
yeah,
and
because
then recovers. Like that
yeah,
moment is, oh fuck, Spock is going to die.
he's in really. It's taking everything in him just to be able to talk to Captain Kirk one last time, and they have this conversation about the ship that's out of danger. Don't weep for me, Captain, because the
It's your
needs of the many
Dickens
outweigh.
fix, everybody.
It's
Nicholas
it's
Meyer
heartbreaking.
sticking in literature every which way. Original title for the movie was Undiscovered Country. And they
Ah,
and Paramount said, get the fuck out of here. What does that mean?
he'll get there eventually. He'll get there. So Spock gives one last live long and prosper, puts his irradiated mitt right up to the wall. Kirk kind of does that thing where he touches, like the boy in the plastic bubble. He touches it, and then Spock expires. And there was no way as a kid to prepare for that. It was like, really? Spock is actually dead? That can't be. He's
Rivers of
dead.
nerd tears flowed down the aisles of movie theaters round the nation.
The best was yet to come because then they've put Spock's body in a photon torpedo casing, and they're giving
Highly
him
unorthodox. What are they doing?
very unorthodox.
Did
But
Spock okay this? Does he have a DNR type document somewhere on file back at Starfleet that none of you are bothering to even contact them to let them know how many crew members are now dead and what do they want to do with their remains? No, I've got an idea. Let's stick them in a photon torpedo tube and shoot them at that planet.
I don't know why they didn't. He must have had. There must have been instructions for the proper management of a
Jim,
Vulcan
if I
body.
ever die, please shoot my body at a newly formed planet.
It's like something that Hunter Thompson would do. You don't expect Spock to be on board with this, but for whatever reason, they
he
decide.
is half human. Apparently, his half human is a fucking rager.
But despite all of that, Kirk is given this speech, and again, it's brutal to watch it. Brutal in the best way because
listen, people make fun of this because he breaks when he says the word human, when he's discussing his best friend who is half Vulcan and half human, and he's now just realizing the price he's paid in this fucking battle that was all his fault to begin with. This is his chickens coming home to roost, this dead friend. And William Shatner as fucking James T. Kirk breaks talking about him. I felt it then. I feel it now. If anyone is laughing about Shatner's performance, and I know he's a big motherfucking ham, obviously, but this isn't ham. This is emotion. And if you can't get with that, then get out of here.
It's one of his best line readings ever. It is so emotional and so raw because I think anyone who has been in a similar situation, maybe you're at a funeral or mourning the death of a loved one, and you're trying to talk and you get that catch in your throat because the emotion catches up to you and you just can't even get the words out. Anyone can relate to what he's going through because he made it through most of the words that he's given at this, effectively this sort of given his last words to his dead friend, but the words just his, that throat tightening thing where you just can't go on. That's it. And it's so relatable and it's so human. And it's, like I said, it's probably one of his best single performances, that moment.
And then they cut the legs out from the entirety of all the emotion with a wink of, guess what, folks? Spock will be back in Star Trek 3. I'm surprised they didn't have a fucking credit to come up to say Spock will return in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock.
Clearly, they were already anticipating this, but if things had broken differently, maybe if it hadn't been successful, maybe this could have functioned as the elegy for Spock, because they don't ever tell you, hey, he's going to come back or how he could possibly come back. There's no way of knowing that. The last shot is really, they've shot the coffin effectively onto the Genesis planet. And that's it. It
You're
could have
right.
gone any which way.
It could go anyway when his photon torpedo coffin arcs through the air, glowing brightly as Amazing Grace is played on the bagpipes. And then we see that his photon torpedo tube has somehow survived entering the newly formed atmosphere and landed gently in a jungle, just sitting there. What could be in there? If they didn't have the shot of the photon torpedo tube and the obvious, what could happen, folks, we don't know, then I would agree, but it is in there. And this is Nicholas Meyer. Like, that was foisted on him. He didn't want that shot in there.
Look, we have the benefit of hindsight because obviously he did come back and we know this now. But at the time, there was no such thing as a sure thing when it came to this. Things break a little differently. Maybe Nimoy decides, I'm never going to come back. I think this death scene was it for the character. I'm done.
Here's the thing. You can either have the photon torpedo tube or Spock doing the famous Space, the Final Frontier speech at the end. You can't have both, because both is, we'll definitely be seeing Spock again. One could be a send-off, another could be a send-off. Together, it's see you next summer.
I was fine with it because I just thought they were hedging their bets. And I get it that maybe Meyer wanted it to be more final and he didn't want to have any equivocation about whether, because it does undercut the seriousness of the situation to have. It's as if Tony Stark as Iron Man died, and then the next movie he just comes back and it's okay. Guess what? He didn't actually die.
It's not
all that emotion.
It's exactly what it is.
Right. But
and when asked if he wanted to come back and do Star Trek 3, he said, I can do Vengeance. I can't do Resurrection.
I just think, again, we have the benefit of the way things happen, but this could very easily have gone the other way. Again, a few things break differently. Nimoy decides he's done. Maybe they call it a day after Star Trek 2. They go with a bang. Maybe it's not as successful. Who knows? But that's not the way things happen. So we can only go with the history as it played out.
Oh, ultimately, look, it remains the best film in the series.
Oh, yeah. Without question. And let me back up. This was the very best of the original series Star Trek movies. I'm not going to say it's the best of the Next Generation movie, because there's at least one incredible entry in that series that I would hold up favorably against this. We'll get to it.
Yeah, I mentioned Alice Krige earlier.
Right. But certainly amongst the original series films, this was the very best. But that's not to say there's some good ones on the horizon. There's some not so good ones and at least one very terrible one we'll get to. But in this case, I'm safe, like you are, in saying this was the best of the originals.
Good, bad, it's all win-win as far as I'm concerned. Even the bad ones are going to be enjoyable here. But sure, this is head and shoulders above all the original series movies. The tone is perfect. The fucking plotting is perfect. The gravity with which they approach the subject matter and the characters and consequences, not to mention what a fucking densely plotted screenplay this is. If you haven't read the screenplay, do so sometime. Nick Meyer's screenplays are a hell of a read. And you know what? And if you haven't seen his movie Time After Time with David Warner as Jack the Ripper and Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells traveling to modern day, then 1970s, San Francisco, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's fantastic. It's where Mary Steenburgen met Malcolm McDowell and then they got married.
It's amazing. Malcolm McDowell is so good in that because he was obviously best known from A Clockwork Orange and other movies like that where he's playing somebody with people who maybe have a streak, maybe aren't so nice. His H.G. Wells in Time After Time is brilliant because you would never expect that kind of performance to come out of Malcolm McDowell. But he is so good in that movie, and David Warner is so creepy. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell comes off as meek in that film, which is something I
Yeah,
didn't think he was capable of. But there you go. What a fucking actor.
never.
And
And
we'll definitely
we'll see
be
him in a few
talking about
movies.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see. Guess what? We'll see David Warner in multiple Star Trek movies on the horizon.
This is true. That Gorkon son of a bitch. I think that's going to pretty much do it, don't you think?
That's gonna do it.
Here's my subtitle for the film: Star Trek II: French Horns in Space.
I agree with you though. Ultimately, this is the best, the most complete story. It has everything. It's got great action, great emotion, great suspense. It's the most complete of all of those original Star Trek movies.
And it can stand alone. I think you can watch this movie without having
Yeah.
any prior knowledge to the original series. You get it. They lay it out for you pretty wonderfully.
Holds up. Think of other movies from 1982. There's nothing, there's really not much that dates this movie. It just feels this could have been made last year. Everything looks real. The direction is fantastic. The sets are great. The costuming is great. And it's a great story. Timeless, I would say.
Are you saying Porky's isn't timeless?
Was that another one? You mentioned Poltergeist. That's an outlier because I think Poltergeist could also be a fairly timeless. So
What about
effective.
Cannery Row? Remember that timeless classic? That's a period piece and it looks older than dirt.
I watched that as a 9-year-old on cable. Didn't understand what the fuck was going on in that movie. Still probably don't.
Nothing dated in Eating Raoul, also of the same year.
Yeah, but that's Paul Bartel. That's such an outlier.
Basket Case, nothing dated there. All these things are incredibly dated, HB.
You're looking at 1982 movies, but
Yeah,
but
man.
you're
How
not
about
looking
Conan
at
the Barbarian? How about that? That came out the same year. This was a banner fucking year for movies. Annie came out that year. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid came out that year. Remember
All
The
right,
Escape Artist with that Ryan O'Neal's kid? Did you see that movie? The Escape
which
Artist?
one?
The Escape
No, I did
Artist.
not.
Saw that in the
I did
theater
not.
a bunch of times by myself as a young child.
Here, I will see your Cannery Row and raise you Tootsie. Good movie, but not exactly, couldn't make the claim that that could have been made last year. It's a
I will
little bit
see your
dated.
Tootsie and raise you the pirate movie.
Oh, with Christy McNichol?
Yeah.
I remember that. Terrible movie.
Listen,
Terrible movie.
this was a great year for movies. The Beastmaster and Conan the Barbarian, An Officer and a Gentleman, and Friday the 13th Part 3.
Ooh, here's one from 1982 that also scarred me as a child. Do you remember If You Could See What I Hear?
With Mark
With,
Singer, absolutely. He's
yeah.
swimming at the bottom of the pool trying to find his dying baby. First Blood was 1982. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch came out that year. It Came
The
from
chip,
Hollywood came out in 1982.
Hanky Panky came out. Grease 2. Oh, there you that begins and ends there. Forget
Grease
it.
2, Piranha 2.
Okay, on the plus side, Blade Runner was 82, but on the minus side, Megaforce was 1982.
On the minus side, I would say They Call Me Bruce came out that year. But on the positive side, Creepshow came out that year.
On the minus side, Zapped came out, but on the plus side, Night Shift came out.
On the minus side, White Dog. On the plus side, White Dog. HP, until our next fest. Is it our best fest? Our Star Trek 3 fest. Listen, HP has a show over on his channel there. It's called Night Mr. Walters Taxi Podcast. I'm a co-host on it actually, where we talk about the television series Taxi. And I guess our next Trek Fest is a crossover episode because our villains return at the Klingons and
yeah,
our lead
that's
Klingon, Krug, is Mr. Christopher Lloyd, playing one of the best performances of Klingon as far as I'm concerned, because he has layers. He isn't just screaming and shouting and throwing things at people.
He's very unpredictable. I think he just seems unhinged in a way that the Klingons don't normally seem that way. He's scary that way. Like you
He's
never
so
know what
good.
he's
I
going to
wish
do.
they had thought ahead and serialized these movies and had Krug threaded throughout so he'd become some ultimate villain of Kirk's.
He's very good. But yeah, I guess technically that's a crossover with Night Mr. Walters Taxi Podcast, which we, as you said, we co-host. Also, I host the Noise Junkies Music Podcast and Father Malone. I have a Bandcamp site, hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com.
Links in the show notes. As for me, you're listening to the show I do, Midnight Viewing. Hey, patrons, you're hearing this at least 2 weeks in advance to the regular suckers on the feed. But thank you all for listening, obviously. And please subscribe and give me 5 stars and recommend it to friends and stuff. This is a call to action. I don't do these too often anymore, I guess. So please do that, actually. But give us 5 stars. It really fucking helps. So anyway, until our next Trek Fest, may the force be with you.